Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name is Luke Basin. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel so you can see more great interviews like the one that we're coming right now. I am happy to welcome back to the show Tyler Dibert. Tyler, fresh off your debut MMA win at 247 Fighting Championships Brawl in the Burgh 20 last night, February 24th. Here you are now, not even a day later. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Really great to have you back on the show. I was honored to have you on the show to talk about your debut. Now let's talk about how it went. You got the win by decision, went all 6 minutes, which I think in a lot of cases, that's a good thing, gives you experience and cage time. Let's go, if we can, let's go round by round. And while I said that, let's first start. You said something that stood out to me because you're a three-time national qualifier in wrestling for NAIA when you were in college. And you said you're used to big stages, used to performing under lights and big stages. So even before the first round started, so walking out, warming up, getting in the cage, all that, what were the nerves like? What was the pressure like for you last night?
I mean, I didn't really feel a whole lot of pressure. I had nerves even when I competed. I always had nerves. They just always went away as soon as the match started. For this one, they hung around a little bit longer. I think it was something new, so they stuck around a little bit. But as soon as I got hit, I mean, it was like a switch. The nerves were gone. From there, I felt great. It was just focusing on the task at hand, really. So I mean, once the nerves were gone after the first 15 seconds, I was good to go.
Oh, that's fantastic. Makes sense. It's a new experience for you. And obviously in MMA, there's different layers, different rule set allows than just wrestling. So you were taking on an opponent 1-1, I think primarily because even though your debut, you had the wrestling background. So that's Jim Mooney, the legendary matchmaker for 247, trying to make things fair, which makes a lot of sense. What was the first round like for you? Now that when you think back, what do you remember from it? And how do you think the first round went?
I think it went pretty well. I know right at first, one of the things I was focusing on was control and distance. So getting tagged a couple times, at first I didn't have that distance down, but once I did, it was kind of got his timing, and I was ready to go get in on leg attacks and try to work him to the ground. I mean, once I got there, I felt great. I thought I had good top pressure. Having him on the ground, I knew he wasn't getting up. I felt like I just kind of controlled everything once we got to positions where I feel pretty good at.
Sure, and that's the part. We talked a lot last time about you training at Gorilla House Gym. Two great head coaches there. Plus, of course, the reigning champ for 247, Ethan Wolverine Goss, and a whole bunch of others, Cam Malgrat Algier, and as you shared, your training partner from high school wrestling, who was there last night. I got to say hi to him, I believe, I hope. Dan the Man Albright, which is all great stuff. So how prepared did you feel when it was live? And obviously getting down the range, you got hit a couple times. We can see just a little bit under your eye. Obviously it's a fight. But how well did you think the training prepared you for the bigger rule set of MMA?
They did a great job of getting me ready. We had a good game plan going in, stuck to it, and I mean, it was get him to the ground and control everything, start striking to the body on the ground. So I stuck to the game plan, and I was ready to go. I felt great in there, like wind wise, everything. So everything went according to plan. So it was all good.
Yeah, it makes sense. It certainly did go according to plan. That's one of the things that the commentators, Ryan Kavanaugh, even Ethan, of course, Ethan very well. We're talking about, I mean, your wrestling level is going to be a big skill set for you in MMA and the main challenge for an opponent. I mean, that's the reality of mixed martial arts. Same thing if you were a world-class kickboxer, anything as far as that goes. You mentioned really being able to control on the ground. Now, there's limited rule sets, but in 2 or 3 more fights, right around 3 more fights, 2 more fights, you could potentially be qualified for advanced amateur, which would allow strikes on the ground. And we saw that last night. You, of course, were a novice fight, but there's really three rule sets in Pennsylvania: pro, which most people know about, advanced amateur, and then novice. You have to fight under novice for 3 times before you fight under advanced. But in your mind, in the cage, were you able to pick up on some of those positions when you were holding top pressure where you would be able to use in a bigger rule set? And do you see those potentials down the road for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple spots where in my brain, I know different things that we work on, moving to neon belly as opposed to saying side control.
Sure.
That thought crossed my mind, but knowing that if I posture up, I can't strike to the head. I just stayed where I was at because I was still in good position, still able to strike to the body. But I think moving to advanced amateur rule set, having that option to get the fight out of there and potentially get a finish early instead of just staying in a position where I'm still doing damage, but I'm not able to work for a finish as effectively.
Sure. And you've got a couple more fights at novice. And one of the things about that, that'll allow you to kind of hone your skills more and even find more ways to strike on the ground below the clavicle following the rule set. And we've seen certainly, you'll make those adjustments. What was round two like for you? Anything stood out? It felt like you were obviously being able to control wrestling throughout, which is why you got the decision victory. But any points sticking out for you in round two?
I think, I mean, with round one, I kind of got, I mean, I got the takedown and it was more of a struggle. I think the later in the fight it went, I was finding my takedowns a lot easier. Round two, I thought it was a real clean takedown. And I mean, it was mostly the same as what we were doing in the first round where I was just controlling and striking to the body. Round three was same deal, but I felt the best in round three.
Yeah.
I felt like I really hit my stride and takedowns were coming easy. So I think just the later in the fight I went, the better I ended up performing.
And I mean, I have some guesses on that. Wrestling itself, not only is training super tough, but the matches you often do 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 matches in a day if you're doing a tournament. So I feel like for me, for my understanding of how it works, you're kind of conditioned to have that endurance. What do you give that credit for? Is it specifically wrestling, or is it also some of the strength and conditioning you're doing? What do you think allows you 6 minutes into a fight to be kind of more dominant than you were in the first minute?
I think a lot of it comes down to mentality. I know growing up wrestling where it was just toughness is something that's just ingrained in you, and kind of just embracing harder times or like going through bad positions or when things get tough. I think that was a huge part of it. But then our strength and conditioning that we do, focusing on pushing through the whole way through. I think that physically that was a big part of it, but just mentally, just after 20 years of wrestling, over 20 years of wrestling, just that mentality is just ingrained where the later we get, the better I'll feel.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and certainly bodes well. You'll have 2 more fights if everything goes well at novice, which will be 6-minute fights, which still will allow you to kind of grow your skill set. And then it'll go to 9-minute fights because of 3 3 minutes. And then obviously farther down the road, pros or even more. But I think that is one of the reasons why we've seen wrestlers perform so well at the highest level with the 15-minute fights typically, because 6 minutes in is only 1 minute into the second round of a pro fight. And I think that's why we see really high level wrestlers do so well in MMA because, they may have to figure out timing and stuff like that in the first round, but really it's making those adjustments for the second. What what to you is now motivating you to continue to train? I know you're the head coach of your high school alma mater wrestling program. You've got a lot going on, but where do you see MMA fitting into your life? Is it going to be something that you continue to focus on, or kind of goes and comes depending on fights? Like, how are you going to balance your pursuit as both a head coach, whatever you do in your real job too, and then
Yeah.
also MMA?
With that, I've found a pretty good way to balance it. I'm actually not a head coach. I'm just an assistant. So I have a little bit more leeway there. Just in terms of times that I need to be there. But then the way my work schedule's been set up, or in the hours I work, it gives me it works out where I'm able to still do both of those. So I'm very fortunate that that's the case. But I know that we're taking this week off to kind of get ready or get recovered and everything after gearing up for a camp and then the fight, obviously. But after that, I'll be back in the gym 5 days a week, 6 days a week, getting ready for the next one, or if Ethan or Dan have a fight coming up, helping them get ready. So it's kind of the plan moving forward, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, that sounds great. I appreciate you kind of sharing about what the behind the scenes will look like, taking the week off to recover, and also the whole amount. It's not just the fight; it's the whole amount of build up for the camp. 247 has already announced an MMA fight on April 20th at the Hollywood Casino at the Meadows, which is a big deal. And hopefully, you or others from Gorilla House are on that card. I know that hopefully will be a big deal. And there's other cards as well. So I'm really looking forward to watching you in the future. Sounds like you're really committed. Training 5 or 6 days a week is a training camp in and of itself, as far as what you're doing. So sounds like you'll be ready to go. Are you motivated to see if an actual fight can work out for Jim Mooney to get a match for April 20th, or is it more kind of get back to the gym, keep training, and then see what options come up?
I mean, I wouldn't mind fighting again in April. I think right now I'm in a good spot where weight's good. I'm in good shape. There's no reason to kind of let that get out of hand or anything like that. But I know with Ethan and Dan also wanting to get on that card, kind of see how everything falls and who gets matched up where. But in general, just get back in the gym, train, continue to get better day after day, and whenever a matchup comes up, we'll go from there.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I look forward to watching you in the future. Thanks for taking time out before your fight to come on this show. And now, after it, just under a day, continue to celebrate and enjoy all the hard work and the fruition that paid off, which is really fantastic. Thanks for coming back on the show. This is Luke Basin from MMA Fancast with now victorious MMA fighter, amateur MMA fighter, Tyler Dibert. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yep. Thanks, Luke.
You got it.